Picture this. It's 2 a.m. You are completely exhausted, just lying there in the dark.
We have all been there.
Right. And, you aren't staying up to solve some massive global crisis. You aren't dealing with a late-night emergency or anything.
You just really need to sleep.
Exactly. You know tomorrow morning is going to be incredibly painful when that alarm goes off, and yet you are just bathed in the blue light of your phone, doom scrolling.
Just one video, then another.
Then just one more. I mean, you know better. You fully understand that this isn't helping you at all. But, a very real, very stubborn part of you simply does not want to stop. Why is that?
It is basically the ultimate modern paradox.
Yeah.
We have all this knowledge, all this self-awareness, and yet in those late-night moments, that intellect is completely useless.
Yeah, it really is.
We are essentially paralyzed by our own thumbs, acting entirely against our own rational self-interest.
Well, that extremely frustrating, incredibly common scenario is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to our deep dive. We've got a fascinating stack of research to go through today, covering human psychology, philosophy, and the hidden architecture of modern society.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. Our mission today is to look at the ultimate tug-of-war happening inside every single one of us. We're going to figure out what really drives human behavior and, by extension, human progress.
Because we love to tell ourselves that it's our celebrated intellect, right? That our reason is leading the way.
Oh, totally. We think we're so logical. But the reality is that our actions are largely driven by something much older and, well, much more primitive, an unspoken, raw desire.
To really understand why you can't put your phone down at 2 a.m., we have to rewind all the way back to the very beginning of human life.
Right back to the start.
Yeah, we have to move from this modern technological symptom straight down to the biological and psychological root.
Right.
I mean, if you observe a newborn baby, you notice very quickly that babies do not use logic.
No, not at all. Nobody sits a newborn down and, teaches them how to want things.
Exactly. They are born knowing how to demand. They want food, they want physical touch, they want comfort.
And they desperately want to avoid pain.
Right. They are just pure, unadulterated want. Freud famously called this primitive drive the id.
Ah, the id, right.
It's that unfiltered part of the human psyche that operates entirely on the pleasure principle. It demands immediate satisfaction, and it completely ignores logic or reality.
It definitely doesn't care about tomorrow morning's alarm clock or, your long-term career goals.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that this primitive drive doesn't actually vanish when we grow up. We assume we outgrow it simply because we get taller and, well, we learn a vocabulary.
But we don't outgrow it.
No, we really don't. That raw drive just gets camouflaged.
So we just get better at hiding it.
Pretty much. As we age, we cover up the id with education, polite manners, societal norms. We learn to wait our turn in line. We learn to say please and thank you.
But that vibrating engine of pure want is always there, just humming right beneath the surface.
Always. And it's driving so much more of our behavior than we want to admit.
Okay, let's unpack this with a visual, because I think it helps. It's like we walk around all day thinking we are the CEO of our own brains.
I love this analogy.
Right. We truly believe we're sitting in the big corner office making these highly rational, calculated choices based on spreadsheets and hard data.
I think we're fully in charge.
Exactly.
Okay.
But actually, desire is the one secretly in the back room signing all the checks. Desire decides what we are going to do, and then the so-called CEO is just left to deal with the paperwork.
That CEO analogy aligns perfectly with how Jean-Paul Sartre viewed human psychology. Sartre looked at this dynamic and labeled it a form of self-deception.
Self-deception, meaning we just lie to ourselves.
Yeah, we lie to ourselves about who's really in charge. And Friedrich Nietzsche took this even further with his concept of the will.
The will to power, right.
Well, just the will in general is a driving force.
Yeah.
Nietzsche argued that beneath every single human action, there is a fundamental driving force of wanting. We don't actually act to be right or to be logical.
We act to be satisfied.
Exactly. Our baseline state is a state of craving.
So if desire is the one signing the checks and the will is driving the car, what is our intellect actually doing? What's its job?
From what we've gathered in our research, reason usually arrives incredibly late to the party.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. We make a choice based on a raw feeling.
Like suddenly snapping at a coworker.
Right, or impulse buying a jacket we absolutely can't afford, or clicking away from a really difficult spreadsheet to watch a funny video.
We take the action because of a raw urge.
Yes, and then, almost instantly, our intellect scrambles to justify it. We basically hire a PR firm in our brain to make our messy instincts look like a brilliant strategy.
Oh, wow. So we tell ourselves, like, I snapped because I'm just so passionate about this project.
Exactly. Or I bought the jacket as an investment piece.
Or I just need to clear my head for 5 minutes with this video so I can work better.
Reason isn't leading the charge at all. It is trailing behind, desperately trying to make our instinctual, impulsive actions look meaningful and deliberate, both to the outside world and to ourselves.
So we're just reacting and then spinning a narrative to protect our egos. That is wild to think about on an individual level.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
But okay, if this intense internal struggle between logic and raw desire is happening inside you, what happens when you multiply that dynamic by billions of people?
Now we're getting into the macro level.
Right. That takes us out of personal psychology and into the massive systems that run our modern world. Because, we tend to look at monumental human achievements.
Like building the internet, or establishing global trade.
Or curing diseases. And we label those as triumphs of pure reason. We frame human history as this steady, dignified march of intellect.
Well, Karl Marx had a wildly different read on human progress.
How?
Marx argued that our productive forces, our technologies, our massive economies, our cities, they don't just grow in a vacuum of pure scientific curiosity.
Right. Humans don't build complex systems just for the intellectual thrill of it.
No, they grow because humans fundamentally want more. We want better lives, we want physical comfort, we want dominance over our environment.
We want power.
Exactly. We are constantly trying to escape our current limitations.
Right.
That forward momentum isn't fueled by pure logic. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is a massive scaled-up version of the id. It's societal desire.
Okay, let me push back on that a little bit, though.
Sure, go ahead.
Because when I look at the platforms we use every single day, search engines, social media networks, global logistics chains, these were built by engineers writing unbelievably complex code.
They absolutely were.
They are solving intricate mathematical problems. You cannot code an algorithm with pure emotion. How is that not reason leading the way?
You make a fair point, but you have to look at the mechanism of why that code was written in the first place. And, crucially, how it operates on the end user.
Okay, keep going.
Yes, the internet started as a rational tool for academics to share information. But it didn't explode into the dominant infrastructure of human life, because the average person has a deep, rational thirst for reading complex academic papers.
That's definitely true.
It exploded because the engineers utilized their massive intellects to perfectly cater to our deepest, most primitive desires. Social media algorithms are brilliant feats of logic, yes, but that logic is entirely dedicated to feeding our desire for constant connection.
Our desire to be perceived by others.
Right, and our desire for immediate, effortless stimulation.
So it's basically the baby wanting comfort right now, just digitized and optimized.
Precisely. Max Weber pointed out decades ago that modern society runs on the logic of efficiency. But in the digital age, we really have to ask, efficiency of what?
Oh, that's a great question.
Efficiency today doesn't mean finding the deepest philosophical truth or the most nuanced argument. It means identifying whatever triggers the fastest emotional reaction and keeps the user hooked.
And delivering it with zero friction.
Exactly. Logic is merely the tool being used to efficiently mine human desire.
Wow. That connects directly to Michel Foucault's ideas about how power operates, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Foucault observed that in the modern world, power doesn't usually force you to do things at gunpoint.
Yeah.
It's much more subtle and much more effective than that.
It shapes the environment so perfectly that you self-regulate. You stay engaged of your own free will.
Let's break down exactly how that environmental shaping works, because it's genuinely brilliant. Think about the physical architecture of a casino.
Okay, no windows, no clocks.
Exactly. The environment is designed to remove any external cues that might trigger your rational brain to say, hey, it's late, I should probably go.
And the digital world does the exact same thing.
It does. The invention of the infinite scroll wasn't a random design choice. It was an intentional removal of the next page button.
Because when you have to click next page, that creates a micropause.
Yes, it gives your CEO brain a fraction of a second to step in and say, actually, let's stop. By removing the pause, the environment removes your ability to self-regulate.
You are locked in a closed loop. As Jean Baudrillard argued that modern society is essentially in the business of producing highly optimized experiences like this.
Experiences designed specifically to hijack your attention.
Right. You feel a vague sense of boredom or like a desire for novelty, And the system feeds that desire immediately with a video or a notification.
That quick hit of dopamine makes you want more, which trains the algorithm to optimize your feed even further.
So reason is absolutely present in the engineers building the system, but it is entirely subservient to keeping your primitive urges fed.
It creates a completely frictionless slide into constant consumption. I mean, nobody is forcing you to scroll at 2 a.m. The environment is simply tailored so flawlessly to your id that your rational brain doesn't stand a chance.
That paints a slightly terrifying picture of society as this giant, highly efficient slot machine.
It is a bit unsettling, yeah.
Which leads us to a really uncomfortable question. If society is a giant machine constantly feeding our desires, what happens when we actually unplug? Why is it so incredibly difficult for us to just sit in a room in total silence?
It is remarkably difficult for modern humans to sit alone with their thoughts. The anxiety is almost immediate.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I always think of it like taking off a pair of heavy, active, noise-canceling headphones right in the middle of a busy city street.
Okay, I can picture that.
You'd expect the sudden rush of traffic noise to be overwhelming. But in this case, when you turn off the screens, close the laptop, and sit in silence, the deafening noise you suddenly hear is just your own lack of direction.
It's the sound of your own emptiness.
Yes. Within seconds of sitting alone, with no tasks, no music, and no notifications, a profound physical discomfort sets in. You start reaching for your phone without even realizing your hand is moving.
Sartre argued that we fear this emptiness because it strips away all our comfortable distractions. When you have no input, you are forced to face yourself.
And there's nowhere to hide.
Nowhere. You can't hide from your own thoughts, your anxieties, or your dissatisfaction with your life. Abercam has called this the absurd moment.
The absurd moment.
Right. It's the sudden, jarring realization that there is no pre-written script to your life. There is no grand external meaning just waiting for you to discover it.
It's just an open void, and you are entirely terrifyingly responsible for figuring out how to live in it.
And most of us are absolutely not practiced at that. We are totally out of shape when it comes to sitting in the void. We're incredibly used to the system handing us the next thing to care about.
The next thing to be angry about.
The next thing to feel. Nietzsche observed something brilliant about this. He said, we don't just seek pleasure through our devices and our distractions. We are actively seeking to avoid the truth.
To distract ourselves from the void.
Right. When there's nothing stimulating us, we often realize we don't really know who we are outside of our reactions. We have no role to play. That is a terrifying mirror to look into.
So desire isn't just this magnet pulling us towards shiny, fun things. It operates as a shield. It is actively helping us escape ourselves.
It fills the gap so we don't have to look at the void. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote extensively about this dark quirk of human nature.
Oh, Dostoevsky had a lot to say about our darker quirks.
He really did. He noted that humans will intentionally break their own peace. If you put a human in a perfectly peaceful, comfortable utopia, they will eventually smash something, just to see what happens.
We will seek out chaos.
We will start arguments over nothing and generate endless drama just to avoid having to sit quietly in empty reality. We would genuinely rather be miserable and stimulated than peaceful and confronted with the void.
Wow. So you scroll at 2 a.m. not because the content is actually enriching your life, but because the alternative is being alone with your own thoughts in the dark.
Exactly.
Okay. So if desire is the sneaky force that hijacks our reason, builds addictive technologies, and drags us away from our true selves just to avoid the void, should we just declare war on it?
Declare war on desire.
Yeah. Should the ultimate goal of human development be to become perfectly rational, emotionless beings? Because honestly, a world without any desire sounds pretty bleak too.
It sounds incredibly bleak, and killing desire is absolutely not the answer. If you completely eliminate desire, you eliminate all movement.
Right.
Without want, there's no exploration, there's no creativity, no art, no love, and no human progress. We wouldn't build or try or attempt to overcome anything.
It's not all bad.
Not at all. Nietzsche viewed desire not as this evil, corrupting force that needs to be destroyed, but simply as life energy. It is a neutral, incredibly powerful force that pushes us out of a state of standing still.
So the problem isn't that desire exists.
No, the problem is that we are blind to how it operates and where it's taking us.
I want to look at people who seem incredibly rational on the outside to see how this holds up.
Okay, give me an example.
Take an ultra-disciplined workaholic, for example. Someone who wakes up at 4 a.m., tracks every minute of their day on a spreadsheet, and never does anything impulsive.
Right.
Or consider an extreme minimalist who refuses to participate in consumer culture and owns exactly 30 items. Aren't they living purely by reason and logic? Haven't they defeated the id?
Well, it looks like they've defeated on the surface. They appear to be the ultimate CEOs of their brains. But if you dig just an inch deeper, you realize that even these seemingly pure rationalists are driven by intense desire.
So it's all just a different flavor of want.
Exactly. If you ask why the workaholic is so rigidly disciplined, beneath all the logical spreadsheets and the early alarms, there is usually a very raw emotional drive.
Like a desire for status.
A desire for status, a desperate need for external validation, or a profound, deep-seated fear of being left behind and deemed worthless by society. The spreadsheets are just the PR firm managing the fear.
Man, and the minimalist is operating the exact same way.
They are. The minimalist might be driven by a desire for total control over an unpredictable environment, or they might be driven by a desire to feel intellectually superior to a consumer system they despise.
The core engine is still desire.
Always. It's just wearing a very convincing, highly structured, socially acceptable, mask-labeled logic. This raises an important question and brings us right back to Sartre's concept of self-deception.
Because we're inventing stories.
Right. We are constantly inventing these structured, logical narratives about our lives to mask the raw, messy feelings actually driving the bus.
We're just spinning narratives to feel like we're in charge, which is why Camus urges us not to pick a side in this war.
You really can't.
You can't just declare yourself team reason and pretend you aren't an emotional creature who wants things, but you also can't just surrender entirely to team desire and let your impulses completely ruin your life.
You have to stand in the messy middle, you have to acknowledge that the tug of war is happening, and stop pretending you are above it.
Acknowledging the friction is the first step toward actual freedom.
It is.
So what does this all mean? Like, how do we practically do that?
We need a strategy.
Right. If we can't completely eliminate desire, and if our so-called reason is often just our PR firm lying to us to make us feel better, how are you actually supposed to navigate a normal Tuesday?
It's the million-dollar question.
When the urge to doom scroll hits or the urge to buy something hits, we need a practical strategy to deal with it.
Well, if we want a practical way out of this, the ancient Stoics actually built a framework for this exact modern problem.
The Stoics.
Yeah. A philosopher like Epictetus points out a very harsh reality right up front.
Yeah.
You cannot control what urges pop into your head. You cannot control the fact that you suddenly crave a donut or feel an intense urge to check your notifications. Furthermore, you cannot control the highly optimized, algorithmically perfect digital environment that is constantly trying to trigger those urges.
You don't control the casino, and you don't control your initial biological reaction to the flashing lights.
Exactly. But Epictetus says that while you don't control the initial stimulus or the environment, you do control your reaction.
You control the tiny space between the stimulus and your response.
Yes. The strategy for this is often called the tiny pause.
The tiny pause, I like that.
When you are working on a hard project and you feel that sudden magnetic urge to open a new tab and check social media, or when you feel the urge to buy something online that you know you don't need, the strategy isn't to aggressively forbid yourself.
Right, you don't scream at yourself internally and say, no, I am a creature of pure reason, I will not look at my phone, because that doesn't work.
It backfires entirely, because the id will just throw a tantrum, wear down your willpower, and eventually win anyway.
So what do you do instead?
Instead of fighting it directly, you just pause for 1 single second. You create a physical and mental gap. And in that second, you ask yourself, what do I actually want right now?
You force the PR firm to stop talking and you look at the real motivation.
Exactly.
Like, are you actually buying a physical item, or are you trying to buy a fleeting feeling of novelty to cure your boredom?
Are you taking a well-deserved mental break from work, or are you just avoiding the discomfort of a difficult task?
That is the genius of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. They didn't preach the total elimination of desire, they preached radical self-awareness.
True self-control isn't about never wanting anything. It is about not letting the want make the final decision without consulting you first.
You are forcing the gap back into the system that Foucault said the environment tries to steal from you.
You're bringing the CEO back into the room before the check gets cashed?
I love that. And the really crucial part of this Stoic approach is that you might do the pause, ask the question, realize you are just seeking comfort.
And then still give in to the urge anyway.
Right, you might still buy the item or watch the video, but even then, you've achieved a victory.
Because you are no longer lying to yourself, you aren't operating blind, you aren't pretending it was a logical, necessary choice.
You saw the machinery working.
You felt the tug of war, you acknowledged the desire, and you made a conscious choice to indulge it. Over time, building that muscle of awareness allows you to reclaim the gap.
Reclaiming the gap, I really love that. It completely reframes the whole conflict. It means human progress, both out there in the massive systems of the world and inside our own heads, isn't driven purely by reason or purely by desire.
No, it is driven by the tension between the two.
It is the friction that creates the spark.
Desire pushes us forward, it gives us the energy and the hunger to move, and reason tries to shape it, direct it, and keep it from destroying us.
Humans are incredibly complex. We frequently know exactly what the right thing to do is, and yet we go ahead and do the exact opposite.
All the time.
The goal of unpacking all this philosophy and psychology isn't to somehow transform yourself into a flawless, perfectly rational machine. The goal is simply to see clearly, to open your eyes to the tug of war.
Just to be aware of it.
So I want to pose a direct challenge to you listening right now. In all the things you call your choices every single day, from what you eat to what you buy to how you spend your time online, how much are you truly choosing and how much are you just being dragged along by something primitive inside you?
It is a question that requires a massive amount of honesty to answer.
It really does. And it leaves me with one final kind of provocative thought to chew on.
Okay, hear it.
We've talked so much today about how we use logic and reason to mask our deep, messy desires. But look at our modern culture right now. Look at our absolute obsession with life hacks, extreme productivity, optimizing every minute of our day.
Tracking our sleep cycles, our steps, our heart rates.
Exactly. What if all of that extreme rationality is actually just another mask?
Oh, wow.
What if our deepest, most hitting desire is actually the wish to become a machine?
To stop feeling entirely.
Right. Perhaps, deep down, we are so overwhelmed by the existential void, so exhausted by the constant tug-of-war inside our own heads, that our ultimate desire is to permanently escape the unpredictable, beautiful burden of just being human.
Now that is a thought that will keep you awake at night.
Maybe even until 2 a.m. When you're lying there in the dark, the phone glowing in your hand, and you finally have to ask yourself, who is actually making the choice to scroll?